Consider this number. It's a Tuesday afternoon, maybe 2:47 p.m. You're at your desk, and you've got a meeting in 13 minutes that could have been an email. And you're sitting there with this vague, almost dreamlike thought. How many more of these Tuesdays are left? Not in a dark way. Just the math of it. How many more times are you going to sit in this chair, in this building, trading hours for dollars, wondering if there's a version of your life that looks a little more like freedom? Most people brush that thought away. They call it daydreaming. They'll go to the 3 p.m. meeting and forget about it entirely. But the answer to that question, the actual mathematical answer, runs through one number, one percentage, a ratio most people have never calculated deliberately in their life, their savings rate. And what I want to show you today is that this number, this 1%, is probably the most powerful lever in your entire financial life. More powerful, for most people, than the investments you make. More powerful than the account you use. More powerful than almost any other financial decision you'll ever make. Because it doesn't just determine how much you save, it determines how many Tuesdays you have left. My name is Nicholas. You can call me Nick, and I spend a probably unhealthy amount of time thinking about money. Not in a maximize your returns at all costs kind of way. More in a, why do people with good incomes and good intentions still feel financially stuck for decades kind of way. And one thing that keeps coming up, over and over, is that most people are optimizing the wrong variable. They're focused on what to invest in, what accounts to use, what the market is doing. And all of that matters, but none of it matters as much as the percentage they're keeping. The savings rate is the one number that connects everything else. And most people have never looked at it directly. Here's how most people think about saving. They earn money, they pay their bills. Whatever's left, if anything is left, goes into savings. And they call that their savings rate. It's whatever the month happened to produce. That's not a savings rate, that's a residual. And residuals don't compound. They just show up when conditions are favorable and disappear when they aren't. A real savings rate is deliberate. It's the percentage of your income you decided in advance to keep, before the bills, before the spending, before life had a chance to absorb it. And here's the thing most people don't know about this number. The relationship between your savings rate and your retirement timeline is not linear, it's exponential. Going from 10% to 20% shaves off 6 years, but as you go higher, the math rewards you even more. Going from 20% to 30% removes 9 years, and going from 30% to 50% removes 11 more. Every tier you unlock compresses your timeline faster than the one before. And nobody ever shows you this table. So let me show you what the math actually says. These numbers assume a reasonable investment return, roughly 5 to 7% annually after inflation, the kind you'd expect from a diversified index portfolio over decades. Not a promise. A historically grounded baseline. Save 10% of your income, the standard advice. Pay yourself first, sock away 10%, you'll be fine. At 10%, you need to work approximately 43 years before your investments can sustain your lifestyle. If you start at 22, that gets you to 65. Which is, not coincidentally, almost exactly when the system expects you to stop working. 10% is not a savings plan, it's the default life setting. Save 20%. Still spending 80 cents of every dollar you earn. Not exactly sacrifice. Working years drop from 43 to 37. You shaved 6 years off your working life just by doubling the rate. Save 30%. Now working 28 years instead of 43. Start at 25 and you're financially independent at 53. Save 50%. You're living on half of what you earn. That sounds extreme until you do the math. 17 years, start at 25 and you're free at 42. Save 70%. Yes, some people do this, usually by keeping housing and transport costs very low. 8.5 years. Start at 25 and you're free before you turn 34. Now, I'm not here to tell you to save 70%. For most people, that's not realistic, and that's completely fine. The point isn't the extreme numbers. The point is that the relationship is not linear. Going from 10% to 20% removes 6 years. Going from 20% to 30% removes 9. Going from 30% to 50% removes 11. Every big step you take has a massive compressing effect on your timeline. The math rewards aggression in a way that feels almost unfair, and this is before investment returns even enter the equation. These numbers assume modest returns, add historical average returns, and the timelines compress further. Because your savings aren't just sitting in a jar, they're compounding. working while you sleep, doing what we've been talking about across this entire season. Your savings rate determines how much you feed the machine, and the machine, as we've seen, does the rest. Now I want to stop here, because I can already hear the obvious response forming. Nick, this is great in theory, but 50% savings rate, I have rent, I have a car, I have children, I have a life. The math works on a spreadsheet and falls apart on a Tuesday morning. Yeah, and I heard that, and I want to take it seriously, because there's something most versions of this conversation miss, something that makes the savings rate conversation almost backwards for most people. Here's the most common response I've heard to the savings rate table. I'd save more if I earned more, and I understand the logic. At a higher income, the absolute amount you save goes up even if the percentage stays the same. And yes, income matters. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't. But here's what the data actually shows. Across income levels, from $30,000 a year to $200,000 a year, savings rates do not automatically improve as income rises. In many cases, they stay the same or get worse, because every time income increases, something else increases with it. The apartment gets slightly nicer. The car gets slightly newer, the restaurants get slightly better, the holidays get slightly longer. Not dramatic, not all at once, just slowly, gradually, almost invisibly, the lifestyle expands to meet the income. This is the ratchet effect at the savings level, and it's the reason so many people with good incomes feel financially stuck. A savings rate problem is almost never an income problem. It's a gap problem, the gap between what you earn and what your life costs. And that gap is determined almost entirely by spending, not income. Someone earning $40,000 with a $35,000 lifestyle has a 12.5% savings rate. Someone earning $90,000 with an $85,000 lifestyle has a 5.5% savings rate. Same amount saved, completely different financial trajectory. The higher earner is actually behind. The uncomfortable truth about savings rates is that most people who want a higher savings rate already earn enough to have one. They just haven't made the spending choice to create the gap. And I'm not saying this judgmentally. Spending is not an enemy. Enjoying your money is the whole point. But there's a difference between spending intentionally, because you chose it, and spending habitually, because your lifestyle has quietly expanded to absorb every dollar you earn. The data on this is clear. Most people don't have 100 small spending problems. They have 2 or 3 large ones. Housing too expensive relative to income. Transport costs that eat a disproportionate share of take-home pay. A social life that requires expensive participation. Fix the big ones, and the savings rate transforms without requiring daily sacrifice or micro-optimization of every grocery trip. So practically, how does someone actually move the dial? The single most effective thing I've seen is almost embarrassingly simple. Automate the savings rate before you see the income. On payday, before the money lands in the spending account, a pre-arranged transfer moves the target percentage to savings and investment. Not after, before. The spending account never sees it. The brain never registers it as available. And what you never see, you never miss. This is how you go from an 8% residual savings rate, whatever happens to be left at the end of the month, to a 20% deliberate savings rate without feeling like you're sacrificing anything. The lifestyle adjusts to the smaller number in the account without protest because the money was never there to be spent in the first place. And then, this is the part that matters most. Every time your income increases, you automate an increase to the savings rate before the lifestyle can absorb the raise. Get a $200 a month raise. Send $100 of it automatically to savings before you ever see it. The lifestyle improves slightly with the remaining $100, but the savings rate climbs, and it keeps climbing, without any single dramatic sacrifice. This is how ordinary incomes produce extraordinary savings rates over time. Not willpower, not deprivation, infrastructure, automation that captures income increases before the ratchet effect can absorb them. So, back to the 2:47 p.m. Tuesday. The question wasn't, am I investing in the right things? It wasn't, what's the market doing? It wasn't even, do I have enough? The question was, how many more of these Tuesdays are left? And the answer, the honest mathematical answer, is almost entirely determined by one number. The gap between what you earn and what your life costs. Expressed as a percentage. At 10%, you're in the default setting. 65 and a prayer. At 20%, you've bought back 6 years. At 30%, 9 more. At 50%, you've built a completely different life. None of this requires a genius. None of it requires extraordinary income. None of it requires perfect market timing or the right stock pick or a lucky break. It requires deciding, consciously, deliberately, in advance, what percentage of your income belongs to the future, and then automate that decision so it happens whether or not you feel like it. Most people never make that choice consciously. They drifted. They spend what they earn, save what's left, and look up 20 years later wondering where the time went. The tragedy isn't that they made bad choices. It's that they never realized they were making a choice at all. You know you're making one now. That already puts you somewhere different. So, same question I always ask, and I do read these. Are you on the default setting right now, saving whatever's left at the end of the month? Or have you touched the dial, deliberately chosen a percentage, and automated it? Drop it in the comments, because those are genuinely two different places to be, and knowing which one you're in tells you exactly what to do next. And if this shifted something, subscribe, because the next episode is going to ask a question. Most people spend decades avoiding it. Not how do I get to $1 million, but what does $1 million actually look like in retirement? What does it buy? What doesn't it buy? And why do so many people arrive at the number and still feel behind? That one lands differently. See you there.